initiative. And last week there was a story in the Washington Post about, the Saudis trolling our film on the movie ratings websites. So, I mean, everything that is put forward not only is real. I mean, you're watching it in real time, and and one of the main things that Biden has said as he's come into office is that he's planning to reassess the U.S.-Saudi relationship, and they have hired up, tens, if not hundreds, of lobbyists to try to prepare for what they think is going to be a real change in its relationship with the United States. And there's been a lot of press on this in the last week since Biden has taken office as to what is going to be with the U.S.-Saudi relationship, because Biden has been very forthright of holding Mohammed bin Salman accountable for this murder. He also tried to rendition a Saudi living on U.S. soil to murder him. He sent agents into Canada to try to come to the U.S. I mean, it's really crazy dictator stuff.
I always say, what year is it? Like, I'm really surprised that, 2021 and this shit is as old as civilization. I'm always naively surprised. If you would have got hold of me in 1987 and said in 2021, the same old shit is still going to be going down, I'd just be like, no, we're going to be one globe at that point. We're going to have supersonic airplanes that get us from here to there in 10 minutes. We're all going to sort of join arms. It's crazy how deep this shit runs and how old it is. And it's like literally the mentality. I mean, the techniques are modernized and the technology is, but the mentality's hundreds and thousands of years old. And it's crazy that we're still there. Sorry.
You know what?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, what you're so right about this is I in the story of of Icarus and exposing this huge sporting fraud. I mean, here I went into a story thinking, oh, it's individual athletes cheating and the system is a fraud. I could have never imagined that an entire country, a nation state, for decades had literally systematically cheated its way through every Olympic Games, every international competition, et cetera. And here again, coming into this story, what was so shocking to me is not only how barbaric this regime operates, but the concept that in this day and age, and I think we just keep taking this for granted in the United States, this idea of, oh yeah, we're safe. Oh yeah, we can send out a tweet saying we don't like this or we don't like that person, or we can send a tweet, whatever, crooked Hillary and Trump should be arrested and whatever that is, and think that, hey, no big deal. And yet there are countless countries around the world, and here's Saudi Arabia in particular, one of the richest and most powerful, where literally voicing an opinion is enough to get you beheaded, let alone somebody sending a kill squad for you overseas to, rendition and murder you. I mean, it's unbelievable. One of the things that we get into in the film is the story of Omar Abdulaziz, who's 27-year-old Saudi activist living in self-exile in Montreal. He leaves his family when he's 19 years old. He goes to school in Montreal because Saudi Arabia has been paying for the last couple decades for its college kids to basically come over into Western schools to be educated, with the promise that if the government pays for their education, to come back to Saudi Arabia. So Omar comes to Montreal. He literally starts living with a Jewish family as an exchange student. So his mind is blown. Suddenly goes, oh, hey, these Jews aren't bad. And the next thing you know, he's learning about democracies. He's learning about freedom of speech. He's learning that you can voice an opinion. And he takes to Twitter. He starts, basically voicing opinions on Twitter. And the next thing you know, he's at odds with Saudi Arabia. And they literally send a rendition team to Montreal to try to rendition Omar back to Saudi Arabia, where arguably he was going to be jailed. And when that fails, they arrest his two brothers, 23 of his friends, because they hacked his phone, torture his brothers. And here we are 2.5 years later. His brothers and his 23 friends are still sitting in a Saudi prison as basically pawns to try to get Omar to basically return to Saudi Arabia, where they'll jail him for the rest of his life for voicing an opinion. And this is happening right now. I mean, this is real.
Gina.
Well, first of all, I can't imagine the survivor's guilt that he must have about that. And it was an incredible documentary. As someone who's been, following the story, there were so many questions that we still had. And I really want to thank you for answering those. But it's funny because, we talk on one hand like it's barbaric and, they talk about getting a 70-pound order of meat to cover up the smell of burning flesh. And, so it's to put it lightly and to be a little glib, it's still analog in many ways. But when it comes to Twitter and the online community, between the Arab Spring and all of these things that couldn't have been done, I don't know how they would have been done without Twitter. I was wondering if you can speak a little bit about, I hope I'm remembering the hashtag right, what do you know about the bees?
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, this kind of goes back to the whole, Adam's comment that I can't believe it's 2021. Well, part of what has happened in, this last, decade is, the social media. The power of social media. We all know what it is right now. We had a president who, basically ran his administration from Twitter. And our election was hacked, with what Russia did on Facebook and Twitter and social media platforms. So, here in Saudi Arabia, because you don't have free speech, because you don't have freedom of opinion, Twitter is essentially the parliament of the people. And in the United States, the infiltration of Twitter is something around 15-20%, like 1 in 5 people are on Twitter. In Saudi Arabia, it's 80%. 80% of the population is on Twitter. And the reason why is because, you can basically have the VPN, you can create a name, you can be anybody you want on Twitter. You can create 20 accounts on Twitter, right? And you can basically then get access to what other people are tweeting, other people's opinion, or tweet out your own opinion. So what Saudi Arabia does as Mohammed bin Salman rises is they realize that basically the Arab Spring and all of these revolutions that have been happening in the Middle East have basically started on Twitter, basically started in these social media platforms, just like the BLM movement started, just like Me Too started on Twitter, right? And so they come up with a plan that they're going to hire thousands and thousands and thousands of people, Saudis, basically to create fake accounts on Twitter so that they can control the public narrative. So if anything comes up on Twitter, like whatever, I disagree with Mohammed bin Salman, the next thing you know, that person's Twitter account has like 7,000 posts on it. You're a traitor. You're a piece of scum. You don't know what you're talking about. Mohammed bin Salman is God. Mohammed bin Salman is the greatest thing since Wonder Bread. Mohammed bin Salman, is bigger than Godzilla. It doesn't matter what this is. And they crush this person's thought or opinion in a second. At the same time, they're putting forward hashtags to go trend. So everything trending in Saudi Arabia is basically a government hashtag that they're planting through their trolls that then are retweeting and retweeting and retweeting, making the hashtag rise to the top. So what Omar Abdulaziz, this Saudi dissident, and Jamal Khashoggi start working on is basically a plan where they can basically fight fire with fire. So Omar gets Jamal to fund him some startup money to order thousands of SIM cards with Canadian and U.S. addresses. So it'll appear like it's coming from the United States or Canada. They disseminate all these SIM cards among Saudi youth, Saudi activists, those that, want change in the country. to start combating the flies. So as the flies are tweeting, the bees, which is the what do you know about the bees, which was the hashtag that they got trending to be number one in Saudi Arabia for a moment, literally a couple days right before they killed and murdered Jamal, was essentially showing that they could fight fire with fire. And it was this plan that Omar and Jamal were working on to basically take back control of the public sphere and of the public narrative to put forward what was really going on in the country rather than simply what the kingdom wants you to know.
I got a final question for you, Brian. Philosophical, but I think we can all kind of join in on this one. So I was thinking about, I can't believe it's 2021. We're still doing this. Any culture or any society that oppresses women or treats women cruelly or unfairly, is there any hope for them until that activity changes? Meaning, women, I've always kind of said that when you live, I'm 200 pounds, my wife's 125 pounds. If I wanted to use my fists, I could get my way. You know what I mean? Like, men are bigger than women. They can physically do whatever they want, but we have figured out that that's not the answer. That's not the direction we want to go as a culture. It shouldn't matter on your size or your upper body strength. And it's also a bigger picture. Like, if you micro or macro, like, show me a guy, we'll go micro. Show me a guy who rules his wife or his daughters with an iron fist and is abusive and gives them no rights and makes a totally separate set of rules for his son than he would be for his daughter, or himself than he would be. Could you ever really trust that guy? Could you ever really do business with that guy? Would you be scared that if you did business with that guy would just have you killed by a drifter and take all your money or collect the insurance? Like, is there any really... Does that guy fit into society? And can a culture fit into the society as we know it, 2021, if in fact it's simultaneously oppressing women? Like, how could you be good in international affairs and business and oil and whatever else and oppress women? And I'm just wondering, maybe we should reverse engineer this. Maybe we should work on the oppression of the females in these cultures. And because the day any culture says women are equal, they have equal rights, they have all the same rules and under the law and in societies as men have, the culture immediately evens out. I feel like those are much better cultures. So, or name me the culture that oppresses women and is a fantastic culture. Like, well, we love being neighbors to that culture. We love doing business with that culture. Like,
the Saudis would tell you that they're a fantastic culture.
Depends on who you ask.
Right.
Look, this is where I think when you look at actual change that can come. So there's a woman sitting in a Saudi prison right now. She's been there for 3 years, and she was just sentenced to another 6. Her name is Lujan Al-Khatul. One of her brothers lives in Canada. The sister lives in Belgium. They have been fighting for her release. She was arrested 3 years ago, essentially for getting to Twitter and going that women, shouldn't be under the guardian system. So in Saudi Arabia, if you're a woman, you cannot leave the home without the permission of an 18-year-old male in the house. So if your mother, right, wants to leave the house, she needs the permission from her 18-year-old son to be able to leave the house. Literally. So Lujan, was basically writing and tweeting about this. She was also suggesting that when they leave her house, should not have to be covered head to toe in a burqa where you could only basically see their eyes, and that women should be able to wear clothing that they want to wear. For this, she was arrested, spent 3 years in a prison, tortured, and then just a couple weeks ago, at her trial, they found her guilty of all these crimes and sentenced her to another 6 years in prison.